Welcome to Understanding Ignition Trends in Agricultural Fire Risk. Thanks for making the time today, team. We're expecting a few more people. I'll start just by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land we're all dialing in from today. So I'm actually on Yagara and Turrbal country up here in Mianjin, and I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge their elders past, present, and emerging, and recognize that these lands have always been lands of teaching, learning, and research. One of the hats I wear at NHRA is I help convene the Pathways Working Group, who is a team of First Nations leaders who are helping us develop our First Nations strategy and really the themes around so much accumulated knowledge and resilience in place that needs better recognition, even when we're looking into the future. And that actually there's tens of thousands of years of empirical data held by peoples that are often marginalized and excluded from different decision-making processes, and their knowledge is discounted. Yeah, a lot of the work we do is looking at addressing the fact that there's inequitable access to services to be resilient in place, but also that recognition of First Nations knowledges and the role they can play if we're working together, and mainly being responsible to country that we're on and being resilient in place as well. And yeah, it's been a really rich conversation we've been having around the First Nations strategy there. But wanted to I encourage you all to take a moment to let us know which country you're dialing in from today in the chat. And yes, welcome. You're in the right place if you're here to talk about the understanding ignition trends in agricultural fire risk. For those that have come to join us today, it's one of the requests for expressions of interest we have at the moment. And we set these sessions up as an opportunity to understand a bit more about what that particular expression of interest we have out is looking for. And so we'll introduce ourselves a bit. I'll explain a bit more about who I am rather than just continually wittering. Tell you a bit about the centre for those who are less conversant with us, as well as CFA, and noting that this project is under the collaborative agreement we have with the Country Fire Authority in Victoria. So this has actually been briefed by CFA, and yeah, as a result of that, there's that expectation of close working. We'll talk more about that as we get through the content of the day. And then we're lucky enough to be joined by Amber and Rachel from CFA, who'll get to introduce themselves shortly, who will tell us a bit more about the project background, where it's coming from, what CFA are hoping to achieve as a result of the collaboration. And then before I cover off a bit more of the sort of nuts and bolts, like the why, going from the why to the how, I'll tell you a bit more about the governance and reporting requirements and the EOI process. So you've got clarity on how you can put your hat in the ring should you be keen. And then hopefully I'll have plenty of time at the end after all of that for questions. So we hold these online briefings so you can understand more about, and we can communicate to you a bit more about what it is that we're hoping to do. I'd encourage you to share questions in the chat as we go through, but also feel free to come off camera. These are really informal sessions usually. So yeah, feel free to come if you're comfortable, just noting the session's being recorded. We will make a note of any questions you ask. The presentation component will be shared on YouTube, so it's just something to be mindful of, so keep the camera off if you're not happy with that bit. But any questions you ask and the answers you receive will be typed up and put on the website as well, just to make sure that everyone has access to the same information, and we have a level playing field. So yeah, all of that will be made available. But like I said, the recording of you speaking won't necessarily be on there. So feel free to sort of jump onto camera if you'd rather ask your questions face to face. Another good use of the chat, and probably particularly worth noting in this case, is the fact that there's a number of work packages within this particular project. You may feel more conversant or able to achieve one more of the others, but maybe less so on the others. And this is actually an opportunity. Another objective of these is to provide an opportunity for researchers to meet. And please, as a result of that, please feel free to share your details in the chat if you're open to collaborating with someone else on the EOI. So we will consider applications that are just around one or more of the work packages. But if you've got a consortium in place ahead of time, all's the better. That just gives us assurance that you're going to work together rather than us trying to matchmake you. So yeah, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and your details if you're open to collaboration with other people that might be on the call. But hopefully it gives you an overview of hopefully you're in the right place and it's giving you an understanding of what we're looking to do today. So next cab off the rank, introductions. So I'll just get the sort of core presenting team to do a quick intro to self as you go around. But my name is George Goddard. I'm one of the Node research managers at Natural Hazards Research Australia. A lot of the Node research managers have a specific jurisdiction. Mine is actually just a predominant focus, not just, it's great, predominant focus on collaboration that we have with commissioned research that's commissioned by DECA and CFA in Victoria. So even though I'm based in Meanjin, yeah, I'm working quite closely with both teams and really enjoy doing so. I think one of the things that I've reflected on being in this role is it's awesome to see how agencies are really investing in these kinds of questions and understanding and getting those insights to understand how we might do things better and create and have impact in terms of more resilience, better practice, whatever that might look like. So I really appreciate the way that agencies like DECA and CFA are investing in this way and also through the Safer Together program jointly. But that's enough about me. I might see, Carl, if you're happy to say a quick hi as the other centre person, and then we'll come to you, Amber, and then hopefully Rachel's back in the room.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle. I'm the Research Services Officer. I assist with all of the background admin as well as the contracting for this program. So I'm really excited to hopefully read over some of your submissions. I'm not sure if Rachel's back, so I'll just pass over to you, Amber.
Bye for time. Bye for time.
Rach should be back. Cool. We're not used to Zoom, so it's a learning opportunity for us coming off of Teams and switching over. Yeah. So so I am Amber Eatzler. I work in the research and development team at Country Fire Authority. Without getting too much in the weeds, most of my work has to do with fuel hazard. So all the way from mapping through to CFA's practices, their outcomes, and avoided risk.
Thanks, Amber. Rachel, are you happy to say a quick hi?
I'm on. Hi, thank you. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. The gremlins got me. My name's Rachel Bessel. I'm a senior researcher in CFA's research and development team. I've been in the team for 15 years and have a real interest in improving operational decision making by providing evidence to support those decisions, and really have a bit of a passion and been working a lot on grass and crop fire research in recent years too. So really happy to have this project on board and going ahead. So yeah, looking forward to chatting today.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, team. Yeah, looking forward to it too. So now you've met who's presenting today and hopefully meeting each other in the chat, I will try and move us to some more of giving you a bit of context on the project and who you'd be working with on this. First capital rank, I introduced myself as being from Natural Hazards Research Australia. Some of you might not know who that is. So we're not actually a cooperative research centre, we're an NGO, but we're a centre that's been funded and funded since the 1st of July 2021. The Commonwealth provided $85 million for 10 years of natural hazards research funding in effect. So that, and in addition to that, it's topped up by participant contributions from participants such as CFA. And the aim is to do really collaborative national research through our core program there. The core objectives of the centre as a whole is to protect human life and minimise harm and suffering, contribute to developing and supporting well-prepared and resilient communities, and invest in research that translates into action. So we do a lot of that through research. We also do that through building capability in a number of other ways. But yeah, we're really an end-user-driven organisation. So what we'll be talking about today is specifically commissioned by CFA and funded by CFA, but even on the core where it's like everyone chucking in, we're looking for those national projects. And across both, we're really looking for the motto of we don't do research. That's a report that sits on the shelf and as a nice item. We do it because we want it to be useful, usable, used. So it's in generating insight that actually leads to meaningful change in the way people do their work in supporting community resilience and/or communities in the way they support themselves as well. So that's a bit of where we come from. That's what attracted me to the centre. I come from a background in community development overseas in particular and environmental management, but really with that impact focus and making sure that when we do research, it's not just a journal article. We're not that it's not valuable, but it's something that's accessible and usable and in a format that agency staff can use to do things differently, and or community members, depending on who the main audience for that insight is. And that's just a bit about the centre. Before we get into about the project, I've already mentioned this is a collaboration with CFA, so I'm going to I promise to be quiet for a little bit at least, and let Rachel and Amber speak a bit more about why this is important to CFA and what we're hoping to do. But just noting this does come under our header agreement with CFA, and as a result, there's a really strong expectation that we're working closely together. So it's not your traditional grant. This is commissioned research, which means we work really closely together to make sure that what's being produced is something that really closely aligns to the objectives of the project. And that's something that we need to see if you are putting in an expression of interest, that you have that understanding. We'll get more into that later. But like I said, pleasure to be working with CFA and on this one. And I'd love to hand over to Rachel to talk to us a bit more about why we're here.
For those of you who aren't aware, we work for the CFA, the Country Fire Authority, which is responsible for fires on private land in the country areas of Victoria. And very similar, I guess, ethos with the NHRA is that our mission really is to protect lives and property. So on that, obviously, agricultural areas in Victoria are a significant component of where fires occur in the state of Victoria. And this project really specifically is looking at a further understanding of how and why these fires are occurring. So we've had in recent years, as a way of project background, a reported increase in fires that are occurring during harvest operations. And these can be from the vast majority are from generally header fires that are occurring, which can start in the engine bay when dust and debris are blown onto sort of the cooling fans or into the hot exhaust manifold and start a fire. And there's also some mechanical faults as well, which can occur as well, like bearings and the like. But we have a significant amount of these fires that are occurring over the harvest period. And really that's a significant risk for us in terms of fire response, is when harvesting operations are occurring. So we're really trying to get a bit more information on these ignition trends in these when harvest is occurring. And similarly, we've actually had in recent years a increase in the reported number of spontaneous haystack ignitions. So in northern Victoria, so hay bales can spontaneously ignite due to the moisture content and the microbes that exist within these grasses when they're baled due to lack of oxygen or airflow. And these microbes can cause spontaneous combustion of these haystacks. And if they're stacked in a way, obviously they're towered on top of each other under a shed for protection, can have quite significant fires occurring under these in these environments, and can burn for quite a long time. And from a response perspective, can take considerable resource efforts to manage. So we've had anecdotal reports of these sorts of increases, but we're really interested in understanding the hows and whys. So why are these occurring? Can we prove it? And the way that we need to do that is by obtaining some really interesting ignition data. And as you can imagine, as a response agency, when fires are occurring and reported through the 000 number, when they escalate large enough, then the job's logged and we send fire trucks to these fires. However, quite a number of these fires, if they're small enough, if they're just in a header and easily put out by the farmer, or if they're, say, a single haystack or not spreading fires from a haystack, then they cannot be reported at all. So there's actually quite a significant amount of the data occurring for these fires that actually aren't documented or in our records. So we actually don't have a full clear picture. It's only when these fires get big enough that they escape and cause significant damage are we getting reports of this. And that's why we don't actually have a really thorough understanding of when and how these fires are occurring. So in order to effectively manage the risks, we're really trying to understand to see what's driving these trends. And that's a real component of this project. So George, if you flip to the next slide. So the aims of the project is to document and develop an understanding of the primary drivers of these fire and how these fires are, what we're seeing in terms of these agricultural fires, in terms of their trends and also what kind of damage that they're doing. So again, like I said, it's really important that when we consider these fires, it's in terms of harvest operations, for instance, like it's bread and butter for these farmers. So they only bank once a year when they get the grain into the silos. So it's really a significant fire risk. But harvest has to occur. Again, that's how money's made. That's why they're doing it to get the grains in the silos. So there's an inherent risk with that, but we need to support farmers with doing it as safely as they can. And so we really need to understand what the risk factors are when harvest is occurring, and also the storage of hay bales and the like. So in doing that, we want to identify the risks and the organisational risks to CFA. So obviously, we're the suppression agency responsible for supporting farmers if fires do break out on their land. Obviously, they support their own assets. They always have suppression facilities on board when they are conducting these operations. But CFA then has to support anything in case these fires, do continue to escalate and grow. So that's sort of one of the reasons why we're really interested in understanding the hows and whys of this and what the risks are for us in terms of management of these fires. So, for instance, haystack fires, when they occur, often once they're contained or they're thought to be contained, the fire's actually handed back to the landowner to manage. So that's a management implication for us. So is that appropriate given the context? And if we're seeing an escalation of these haystack fires, is that something that is a bigger risk for us as a fire organisation? And I guess off the basis of the findings from the project, we want to know areas of improvement or potential insights that we can use to reform our procedures and best practice. So again, it's not intended that the project will then, the output of the project will be to update our standard operating procedures, but we really want the information from this project to inform the way that we operate and respond to fires and manage fires in these instances. So I'll just briefly go over the project outputs that we're expecting. It's a bit wordy. It's basically straight from the EOI. And then I'll hand to Amber, who will talk through sort of how we're trying to package this up into sort of clumps to make sure that we're hitting all of those project aims. So the initial output is to report on the current known literature, both published and grey literature, and best practice for what's known about agricultural fires, and importantly, their antecedent conditions, like what conditions are contributing to the fires occurring and the breakout at the time. And we're interested in, it talks a bit about harvest and haystacks, but also there are other agricultural fires that occur in the landscape, such as stubble burn escapes as well, which is really relevant to this project as well. So we're really trying to get a really good overview of what ignition trends are occurring in the landscape. So again, as I mentioned, this will help with us understanding the current harvesting and haystack management practices that are currently in place and how we're responding to fires when they do occur. So we're really interested in some of the understanding of best practice and what people in other jurisdictions are doing. It might be outside Victoria, within Australia, or even outside of Australia, because obviously harvest farming, is occurring across the globe. And looking at what other fire agencies are doing to monitor these conditions and these risks as well. So on the back of that, we're looking at a project note on CFA practice, so reviewing our current operational doctrine and guidance that we provide to farmers in terms of how we manage the risk of agricultural fire. So for those who aren't aware, CFA provides a voluntary cease harvesting guideline to farmers in Victoria. In other jurisdictions like South Australia and West Australia, it's actually legislated that they must cease harvest when it's too hot, dry and windy to proceed. But in Victoria, it's just a voluntary guidance note, but it's generally quite well adhered to by the farming community. So they know we're giving them the conditions where it's really too hot, dry and risky, that there's a real risk of a fire igniting during harvest operations. And farmers take that on board and generally cease harvest under these conditions. So that's one thing that we provide to farmers to help them with managing fire risk. But again, importantly to note that as a fire agency, we don't tell farmers how to farm. That's their responsibility, but we're trying to provide them with the guidance to do it in a safe manner in terms of fire risk. So moving on to the next set of outputs. Looking for the 2025-26 and then 26-27 fire season, we're interested in obtaining some data to report on agricultural agricultural fires. And what we want to do that is make sure that we have a system or a tool for data collection. So making sure that we've got the project develops a system that's used by the provider to standardise collection and reporting of agricultural fires so those trends can be identified. So as I mentioned, not all fires will be in our database. CFA doesn't have just a database to give researchers to say, here are all the recorded instances of agricultural fires. There's going to take a bit more work and effort, and working with farmers and landowners themselves, working with CFA members who are responding to some of these local fires to get a bit of understanding of what the actual picture is. And that will be really informative for then project output number 4, which is the documenting the report on agricultural fires that occur over the next 2 fire seasons. So the things we're trying to get out of that is the type of fire. Like I said, there are a variety of different agricultural fires. What kind of equipment was involved? Was it during harvest operations? Was it during a stubble burn? Interestingly, another one is what agricultural product may be involved. With recent technologies, there's been the introduction of some chemical additives to grass before it gets cut, or vetch gets cut for hay, which means it can get cut earlier and less cured. So it's got higher nutritional value for livestock. But in doing that, is that actually increasing the risk of spontaneous combustions of once they're being baled? Are these additives contributing that from a chemical perspective, or also just from the fact that it's actually cut at a higher moisture content and therefore more likely to breed biomes, microbes, and start fires? So things like that are really relevant kind of information that we'd like to see recorded with when these sort of fires occur. Obviously, the date and type of time of the occurrence, the antecedent conditions, which is a really critical one. So what are the weather conditions leading up to these fires? When we're seeing seasons that have significantly more of these fires occurring, is it due to the fact that it's been a really humid summer? How's the crop condition? You can see harvest fires occurring when you've got a bumper yield and you're getting lots of chaff getting caught up in the header during the operations. But on the inverse, you can actually see fires occurring with really low yield crop seasons because the harvester's working hard in lower conditions, more likely to hit rocks when it's cutting and bringing up dust as well in the manifold. So those crop state is really important factor for the seasonal conditions to consider as well. Again, what activities occurring? Is it during harvest operations and the like? And what's the documentations of the processes and outcomes of these fires? So how many sort of resources were required to the event? As I mentioned, obviously CFA responds to these fires, but lots of local farmers have their own private firefighting appliances, which also aren't well documented in terms of a CFA incident record as well. So were there several of the nearby farming appliances available that weren't documented and were actually contributing to the fire suppression efforts? And any potential other risks that you might find with these as well. And jumping ahead to Amber.
Rachel just covered all of many of the outputs that we're expecting from this project. And it is very much a lot. And there are numerous foci for that. So it's a bit of a tough one to say like one provider can do all of these things. So what we've done is we've tried to break this particular project up into possible work packages. Potentially someone can handle all of them, but again, as George mentioned earlier, it is absolutely available to you all to create sort of consortia to be able to handle all of these multiple aims of this project. So starting with work package number 1, this is really the review section. So this one covers that initial literature review, as well as the CFA practice note on our current practices in this agricultural fire space. So again, as Rach said, harvest fires, header fires, escape stubble burns, haystack fires. CFA has heaps of literature and many standard operating procedures on what we're meant to do in all of these different conditions, but based on what's learned in the literature review, etc., how might we advance that? The second work package is really concerned in what we're just calling the fire surveys. So there again is that standardized collection for data. This one is going to be looking at both of the agricultural fire reports. So we're starting in this season, and then there will be a second report that will be due for next season, 2026-27. So this is a fairly large piece of work, and will include lots of field work. And I'll get into some of the in-scope and out-of-scope aspects of these work packages a little bit later. The third one is the ignition trends. This is one that wasn't on the slide, so I'll just try to give you a little bit more in terms of this, but this is a pretty massive piece of work as well. This one we do expect some statistical analysis of antecedent conditions and their impact on some of these agricultural fire ignitions. So really we want to be able to, again, determine the drivers, weather, crop state and condition, etc., under which these fires are occurring. This is really going to necessitate some additional consultation with farmers and CFA members. You will be needing to source external data, so long-term weather data. And we're expecting that this is going to include a rationale for the driver selection that you as the provider come up with, as well as an investigation and statistical analysis that's really showing the effects on this fire ignition. At a minimum, we expect that this report should consider at least 15 years of incident data, so starting in 2010, and it should include the fires that are surveyed during work package number 2. So really important here, although they could be covered by different research providers, there are multiple interdependencies within and amongst these work packages. So that collaborative piece is going to be incredibly important.
We might have lost Amber.
Are you happy to speak to work package 4? Thanks, Rachel. I think Amber's out for a sec.
Sorry. Got to have some technical issues. So yeah, really important that we're pulling together that from the ignition trends from a statistical perspective, because really at the end of the day, this is trying to document and show us what the ignition trends are, to give us a really basic lay of the land in terms of agricultural fire risk, which we can then do supplementary research projects from. So we don't expect this project to have all the answers, but really giving us a really firm understanding of what those trends are and what the risk is in the landscape. Into work package number 4 is the synthesis. So is drawing all that information together. So pulling the ignition trends and survey reports into a final report. And that's obviously a significant body of work by pulling together all the findings from that, and also then the recommendations for CFA to improve their practices, from both recommendations for improving some of their standard operating procedures and communicating guidance to farmers as well. And the socialization component is then, of course, presenting, doing a presentation of the work packages conclusively to give us a well-rounded project at the end in terms of the deliverables. Next step, so key dates. We've put these in place. Obviously, the EOI was advertised and then re-advertised. So the dates we're obviously a little bit flexible with, but importantly, we kind of want to hit the ground running once we make hopefully the engagement by the end of this year is to then go into the being able to obtain data from this season. Even though obviously harvesting is occurring at the moment, we still want to be able to look at those ignition trends and information for early next year. And then really in terms of that methodology design for data collection, based on the findings that we've got from this first season, we can then refine that and make sure that we're comfortable with the methodology design for that before we go into the 26-27 season. And then obviously some of the key work packages will delivery of work package 1 and 2 by mid next year, and then doing the agricultural fire report for 26-27 by March 2027, and then similarly the ignition trends report. So that we're looking at basically a 24-month project. So as we mentioned, the project's intended to be a primary project for understanding agricultural fire risk and allowing for follow-on research. So what we're really trying to get out of this is sector-wide understanding of agricultural fire risk. So having really clear interstate or national consistency in harvest fire danger guidelines, and review of haystack management practices, considering particularly climate change conditions, given that's the way of the future. Climate smart agriculture and community resilience. So ongoing data monitoring can be linked with climate adaptation programs across Victoria. Improving agency practice, of course, which is relevant for us as the agency who's funding the research, is improving our the way we manage agricultural fire risk. And again, like I said, really importantly for both us and NHRA is the future research component. So making sure that we have a really good understanding of agricultural fire trends, which can then be used to harness future research projects.
Yeah, back to me. Thanks, Rachel. Sorry we lost Amber, team. I don't know if you're back in the room, Amber, but that's all right. Hopefully she can rejoin soon. So what I'll do now is just talk a bit more. I'll give you a bit more context on how the projects tend to run. I won't go too much into detail into stuff that's written on the EOI, because I think you can see it there. You can always contact us after this session if you have any emergent questions via email. So please send them through to research@naturalhazards.com.au. Again, when we get questions, we'll put them up on the website, but yeah, just so everyone has access to the same info. But in terms of expected engagement with CFA in the centre, it really is a collaboration with CFA. So that's where we need to make sure and have for you to be able to demonstrate how you might collaborate with CFA and engage with us throughout the project, in particular importance around key decisions, key insights, and reflecting that in your method. It's really strong agency consultation in this one. Just looking at this and the heavy fieldwork component of it, it's really important that there is that communication, particularly so people, respective brigades, etc., are aware of the fact that you're interviewing or you're getting that data. Because if people are surprised by it, it can lead to all sorts of it's not the best to manage after the fact. It's better if they know ahead of time, so they get questions, they can answer those. And yeah, so having an engagement plan and a clarity on that is really important. Similarly, coming with an agreement around when there is any public dissemination, how that's done is a really key part of CFA engagement. And just again, to make sure that everyone has the context they need, should they be approached, and noting that CFA is obviously really embedded within the communities that you're likely to be engaging with. As a result of that, going through the right process, making sure that they're aware of and we're consulted. But also, part of the reason we have this collaborative approach and check-in is to make sure that you're collecting data and that you're coming up with things that are genuinely going to be useful for CFA practice. And that only really happens if we continue to have that conversation. So even with the best intent, we see a drifting and understanding what happens, and that just happens naturally sometimes as you're doing research because you find a particular interest. Having those continual touch points throughout the course of the project so we can make those decisions together, and noting that you do require some flexibility within it because you want to be able to respond to insights. We do that collaboratively. So that would be with the centre and with CFA, so we can make the adjustments to the scope as needs be. So budget timeframe, nuts and bolts. This is all on the EOI, so I won't go into it too much, but a little over 270 grand, excluding GST. And it's not an initiation, it's initiation, 2 years with an initiation, so about 24-month project. Governance and reporting, so it's in our collaboration with HEDA. Your contract will be with the centre, so with NHRA. We will have a project control board or a project management committee that works together, and we meet as we need to make decisions about the course of the project, to receive updates, to get together to make decisions. We're lucky to have 2 CFA research leads in this case, with Amber and Rachel, who we'll be meeting with semi-regularly, and close engagement throughout. And in terms of reporting, we have milestone delivery, which will be required to deliver against contract, quarterly progress reporting, which is done through our online system. We need to be successful. We train you in that and try and make it as easy as possible for you to provide updates. At the end, there's a project evaluation report as well. So it's just to reflect on what went well, what might we do differently if we were to have our time back again, what is the value of the work that's been delivered and potential ways forward. And periodic presentations for stakeholder input, as Rachel mentioned before. So yeah, just really highlighting the way we intend to work together. Now, in terms of the process for actually submitting, the UI is up on the website. That's the hyperlink. Hopefully you've all seen that. I mentioned it before, but if you've got questions, please don't contact or Rachel and Amber directly. We do need to make sure that the questions are being managed. So feel free, we can be in CC, but we can also contact, if you want to come to the centre first, we just need to make sure that all your questions and answers are going up on the website for that level playing field component. Submission to the EOI is in a couple of weeks' time now, so please submit to the same address that I mentioned before by 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Okay, we're sticking a standard time, 8th of December 2025. So obviously an hour later of your daylight time. When you make a submission, it's not, some of you would have applied to the core program. You do not use that form. So we don't use that form on our contract research because we'd like to give you a bit more flexibility. Those of you who've worked with CFA before or submitted, it's similar to that. So basically, we have page limits. You have a project proposal of up to 8 pages, clearly addressing the specifications set out for the call of the EOI. The statement of capability with no more than 4 pages, so you can describe your background, why you think you're well suited to the tasks and the method. It's a way of demonstrating that your method is feasible given your background as well. Yeah, we are seeing a few AI submissions where we can't quite marry up how the methods come from those people, so it's something to look out for. The proposal must include your introduction, project plan for delivery, clear description of deliverables through the various stages of the project. So showing us your understanding of how things fit together and how they work. Detailed project budget, including details and any in-kind contributions and a summary of staff and skills. The summary of staff and skills can actually come into the statement of capabilities, so that's fine. Project budget, including details of any in-kind contribution. I've already put that, and then review draft contract. So on the website, you can see a copy. There is a hyperlink to a copy of the research services agreement that we have with CFA. Please look at that and let us know if there's any clauses that you probably seek to negotiate. We can't promise that we can negotiate those. Some of them are pretty locked in because we've got upwards accountability, so we can't necessarily always negotiate those. But you should flag them ahead of time, otherwise we reserve the right for you to progress with the clauses as they're described at the point of the EOI. So do take some time to look at those and let us know if there's anything that's not going to work for you. In terms of the EOI assessment, we'll have a panel to look at your EOIs after it's closed. Centre and CFA leads will look through all of those against the evaluation criteria. You can see on the right here. And it will be a joint recommendation made to CFA to then progress up the line within CFA for approval. So we'd be looking at capability. So what's the capacity and capability to deliver an excellent applied research and development project in a Victorian environment? Your proposal, so it's really looking at method and whether that marries up to your goals and objectives. And yeah, how you've understood that engagement approach that we're seeking throughout this project. Industry engagement is an opportunity for you to demonstrate to us how you've had successful collaborations in the past. Usually you'd find that in the statement of capability, but there's a number of ways to do it. My recommendation is please don't just list your collaborations, but if you've got an opportunity, try and indicate whether there's the level of success of those and level of satisfaction within those. So not everyone does that, but if you have them, that's great to see. That's like gold standard. Like, okay, they're really happy with it. Here's the testimonial, whatever it might be. And then value for money is the last one we assess. But that's delivery within the available budget and available ability to leverage funds within kind or supplementary opportunities. So we do need to look at the money. You will see when you look at the EOI, it's not hugely weighted. So it's about 10%, I think. What we're really looking for is having a team that really understands what we're trying to achieve with the project, a team that has the capability to deliver on a method that's been developed that really speaks to those objectives. So that's going to be the core. That's where a lot of the weighting is. So spending your time there is a good thing. Okay, I think that's it for the talking or us talking bit. We've still got some time for questions, which is wonderful. So I'm going to stop sharing. And this is where we will finish the video that's going to be online. So thanks everyone online. It wasn't actually here for your time watching this. Looking forward to seeing your applications.
Just for everyone online and anyone who watches this later, it looks like we've lost a slide. And I mean, sorry for you lost us at certain points too.
That might be my issue. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. I just wanted to direct everyone to please look at the in and out of scope section of our call for EOIs, as that's incredibly important and will be considered in your proposals. So We will be requiring field work. We will be requiring statistical analysis, consultation with regions, but it's just as important that you look at our out of scope. We don't need live fire experiments. We don't need lab experiments. We're really looking for more applied research here. It is an agency industry project, so we're not looking at the theoreticals. We really want to know the actual antecedent conditions and be able to provide our stakeholders with information that they can immediately implement. So practice, not theory. Thanks.
Yeah, what a good summary. So sorry, we missed what was obviously a critical slide, team, but do look at that component of the UI. So it is a re-release, this one. And we have updated those inclusions, exclusions to make that a bit clearer. So yeah, please do consider those carefully and consider how that fits within your own research capability, or where you might need to supplement to get yourself to a good outcome and the likelihood of being successful in the expression of interest. That's the actual end to the presentation. Thanks, YouTubers, for your time. Thanks to everyone who's still in the room. Now's an opportunity to stick around. You can ask the questions that you've been burning to ask throughout the presentation. We still have another quarter of an hour to do that. And if we don't get to all of them, we can do some follow-up. If we don't have that many, we can also give you some time back. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, thanks for your bearing with us. Team, sorry about that with the slides. Lesson learned with syncing. We'll get there one day. So over to the people in the room. I can't seem to bring up the chat, Carl. I can see there's 11 things in there.
I was going to say, George, Rod just had a question about how do research collaborators meet up? Do you canvass each other for key interest areas, or CFA won't be matchmaking, but NHRA might be, I guess. So
yeah, so we can't actually matchmake you before. So this is your chance. You can contact each other. We can do a bit of that post. But you're taking a big risk putting in for work packages, like individual work packages, rather than trying to contact people that might be interested. So if you've got a particular strength or area of strength you feel you have, please put it in the chat as well. Or if you're looking to collaborate with someone. But we can't do that, unfortunately. We can't do the matchmaking ahead of time while the UI is open. Sorry, it's just that's part of the probity stuff that we've got to observe. So as a Commonwealth funded entity, but yeah, feel free to copy down details from this and give people a call. But yeah, and also we can do that afterwards, but like your preference. If there's a good team that's gone in for all of them, there's an established relationship. We're probably not going to take a punt on ones that have never worked together or haven't even had a chat yet. So yeah, hope that helps, right? Petter, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thanks for that presentation, and that's really helpful. I've got some questions. I guess the one that sort of stands out a little bit around the system and the tool for data collection. To what degree is this something that's being developed specifically for this project, and the user of that system is the service provider in this case, or is it being built with a view to give it more longevity beyond the time frame of this project so that others can pick it up?
Rachel and Amber, you're happy to talk about that? So yeah, to what extent is it something that's going to be used ongoing by others to keep collecting this data?
Well, I guess the point is that there's currently there's nothing that's currently being used. So it's just about having a systematic approach to obtaining data. And I think if it's something that we can successfully use moving forward, then I can't see why it wouldn't get uptake, because a lot of this sort of research too, a lot of other fire agencies are looking to CFA to do this, because we've had a lot of experience in particular grass and crop fire research. So anything that we can do could then potentially be used for other jurisdictions as well. So something to start with us is to make sure we've got a systematic data collection system, and then moving forward.
Just one more while I got my hand up.
Great.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah. Just on the type of fire and the actual report on agricultural fires, are we also looking at detecting fires, or are they all fires that were already reported through 000 to CFA, so they're already recorded as an incident, and we go back and collect data on those? Or is there also an expectation here that we actually identify fires that haven't had a 000 call
we would love it if you could obtain any data on fires that haven't got a 000 call. And again, that's probably more that working with local relationships. So talking with local CFA members, for instance, who can tell you that there are fires that are unreported. I know that they do CFA community safety does like a harvesting breakfast every month and stuff, where people can come together and talk about things more anecdotally. So I think there's definitely opportunities to get more information. If there are, I guess remote sensing platforms for looking at the harvest detection is probably another thing. Obviously, we look at remote sensing platforms as well. But in terms of fire, obviously fires that don't spread will be difficult to detect. But yeah, definitely if you could obtain more information, because like I said, a significant component of this would be underreported. So if any information you can get on that would be hugely valuable for us to understand those risks.
So hopefully that helps. We had did you have any follow-up? Are you gonna be you're done with the mic?
I'll use the chat.
We had a question from Easy, I think. Could you please inform us roughly of what proportion of the project focuses on understanding where and when ignitions occur, and how much of it is directed towards operational applications? Is that 50-50? What's the rough cut on that?
Great question. So look, it's definitely the primary objective of the project is to understand the risk of where ignitions are occurring and why. And then we can use that to then inform our operational risks. So use that to inform the way that we respond to fires or manage fires or provide guidance to farmers in terms of harvesting or hay storage and the like. So it really is the ignition trends component is the most valuable part of this project. But then obviously identifying where you can see that, there's better practices being used in different jurisdictions or different ways of framing the problem elsewhere, then that'd be highly valuable for to be identified as well as part of the project.
Thanks, Rachel. Hopefully that helps a bit.
So I understand that CFA has the database on incident reports, probably those mainly text. But I saw that online that if I log in for one report, it charges $70. Would the CFA be able to share with the researchers those reports or any other data that you can share as well?
So CFA will be able to share via incident reports with the researchers, no problem. Yeah, that's fine. There'll be no charge for that. That's obviously part of the project. But like I said, it will be also obtaining data on fires that haven't been reported, and that will require potentially going out in the field and working with local members or farmers. So that has to be factored into the project budget, that there will be field work required with the project to get that additional data that won't be reported in CFA records.
So that's one, again, where we are happy to share the data that we have. So we'll share that incident database, acknowledging that it is limited in some ways. And so you might be needing to fill in the blanks with your analysis. And then we can help set you up with some weather databases like VicClim, which we can talk about to those who are successful in this, but that has over 50 years of daily weather for Victoria. We also have some data that we might be able to share on remotely sensed crop ID and harvest detection that might help in the analysis. But just again, I wanted to point out that the work package 2 and 3 are really going to need to rely on each other, as work package 2 is really doing those fire surveys and field work, and work package 3 with the ignition trends report will need to then do the 15 years, so reliant on historical data, but then also pull in from that the past 2 seasons and really need good data from whoever is doing the field work component of the agricultural surveys or agricultural fire surveys. So just wanted to point that out. And it wasn't mentioned, but we are not expecting any sort of full fire reconstruction. It's really just those main criteria that are listed in the call for the EOI. But absolutely happy to help researchers out trying to source data, but acknowledging that some of it is going to have to come from you all.
Can I please have a follow-up question on that? So would you expect the one to undertake the package 3 to also undertake package 2? And if not, then can the one who undertake package 3 provide suggestion for package 2 on maybe some additional items to be included in the survey?
It is not necessary for the same provider to undertake both 2 and 3. In fact, it might be difficult to do both of those in the time allotted. Who knows? But there will need to be concurrent work being done on both of those packages. So I do want to acknowledge that. But it will be necessary for those 2 providers or 1 provider to really work collaboratively. And yes, it would be great if work package 3 can rely on work package 2 to and ask for additional pieces of data collection. It's not out of scope for work package 3, that's the ignition report, to also do some field work, but it would be excellent if we're not overburdening our farmers and regional CFA staff, like asking them or trying to consult them on the exact same things, right? So we do want to make sure that we're not putting any sort of strain or using up our social license with our stakeholders there.
Alex, you've been patient with a hand up there.
Yeah, thank you, George. I have a question regarding work package 2. I'm wondering, in terms of surveys, do you expect us to work with with farmers in particular locations and CFA crews, or we have some freedom, where we want to collect data?
You have freedom as long as there are fires in the areas in which you want to collect data. So we do have a number of very interested CFA staff and volunteers in this. Folks in our Northwest region have written reports in the past 2 or more seasons on header fires. There are many people really engaged in haystack fires. So we'll be able to provide you with contacts that will likely be able to help get you started. But beyond that, cropping areas likely of Victoria is really where this is going to happen. And those are quite spread across the state. So what feels good to you, I think, will be good for us.
Thank you.
So Petter, just checking in, was there some of that covered already, or did you want to ask that question more specifically? You had another question, engagement, trust, and local staff.
Yeah, and I think, it sort of relates a little bit to what Alex was asking, but also Rob's follow-on question there. Just in general, how do CFA envisage that engagement unfolding? I guess, like you say, there's some CFA staff that are particularly interested, and so then that will obviously bias us towards a particular sector of ignition trends. And so this sampling component, the nature of the engagement, how to facilitate that and build on what the trust that's already there. And I guess to George or to Rod's question here around, ethics requirement. So if it's got a big engagement component, and just curious to hear your perspectives on that.
The ethics component, usually on the core, yes, it's required, but it's sort of with CFA's discretion regarding the engagement. Either way, even without formal ethics application, we'd expect observation of ethical standards during the conduct of that research. So noting that not everyone has access to a formal HREC. So yeah, but also if you're seeking ethics, please build that into your budget. Unless Rachel, Amber, you've got another preference. It's a good question. It's something we've answered on the core, but we haven't necessarily tackled as head on through the commissioned research before. But my understanding is actually, as long as it's conducted in a manner that's considered or is considered ethical or consistent with those standards, we should be happy. But yeah, let me know if I've misspoken there.
Really, for us, that regional engagement is really important. And sort of, I guess, following on from what you said, Alex, too, I don't necessarily think you're going to be getting to fires when there's still firefighters on the ground. So it's going to be talking to engaging with local CFA staff, landowners, farmers after the fact. So you will definitely work in partnership with us. We will help support you in that obviously it needs to be conducted independently, but we need to make sure that we're maintaining really good stakeholder engagement with people. And like I said, not over burdening them with asking the same questions twice. And we'll make sure that we're supporting you in that as well.
There's also, I would say, the opportunity for that standardized data collection tool or whatever it ends up being, that system, to help with that component as well. Because already we have folks who just write us emails sometimes describing agricultural fires. So there are multiple pathways in which we can get to some of that data without necessarily having to go to each and every one. So that might be something to consider as well. And we can discuss more as a project team, and we will be bringing in for you some of our regional CFA folks to help facilitate some of that work.
Great, thanks, team. I think it's got to all the questions we have today. But yeah, it's not speak now, forever hold your peace. You can always email any questions that occur to you afterwards to research@naturalhouses.com.au. And please do so. So yeah, we're keen to see if a good crop put their hat in the ring, no pun intended. But appreciate your time today, team. If there's anything that pops up, yeah, like I said, after or we didn't quite get to your question, then let us know as well, and we can come back to you. We're always sort of checking in with Rachel and Amber on any questions that are coming through the inbox there. So, and yeah, feel free to take a quick moment to take down any contact details of people you might be interested in collaborating with. That's more than encouraged. So, was there any closing thoughts, questions, last urgent? I know we're 2 minutes over. My chairing is shocking as ever.
I just wanted to thank everyone for their attendance on behalf of Rachel and myself. Rachel just got kicked out again. CFA laptops really hate Zoom. I'm sorry for us being in and out, but we really appreciate all of you who have expressed an interest in this project, and we're really keen to get started with you.
Thanks, team. As before, please let us know if you've got any more questions. But thanks for your time today. Thanks to Rachel and Amber for your time as well. Appreciate it as ever, bringing it to life. And yeah, we'll catch up soon, hopefully.